all around Australia are having strange and unexplainable encounters. Join BFM's Cosmic Girl and Seafood each Friday night at 10 p.m. as they explore the fascinating world of paranormal and tales of strange encounters. Extraterrestrials, ghosts, monsters, myths and magic. BFM 10 p.m. Fridays, the heart and soul of the Bay. Oh, and the spirit along the Redlands coast and beyond.
So welcome to another jam-packed, exciting episode of Strange Encounters on 100.3 Bay FM, the heart, soul and spirit of the Bay. We have the absolute experts in the UFO field with us today, namely Cosmic Girl and Bazza here in the studio. And we're going to be talking to you guys and sharing with you guys. Oh, this is a very interesting series of topics, a bit of controversy actually. And Bazza off air is actually had a little bit of a dig at me with regards to me framing it as being conspiracy. So what are we talking about? Oh, he's giving me the look.
He's got the look.
He's got the death stare. Come on, Bazza, we're all friends here.
I want to take it back just a step.
I feel like we should be sitting around a campfire or something now.
You call me an expert.
Yeah.
Well, you know the definition of an expert, don't you? X is a has-been and a spurt's a drip under pressure. And I can tell you one thing now, I'm not a has-been.
Well, what are we talking about? Dripping under pressure? That's a medical condition.
No, I just thought that to skip over the top.
I don't know if there are any experts in this field, are there?
No, but your next question was conspiracy. No, we're not really into conspiracy theories. We'd rather deal with facts and deal with the bigger picture and delve into it probably a little bit more deeply than the average Joe so that we can dig out about what's really happening and share that with our fans in UFO Research Queensland and now the UFO the Down Under radio show.
Get it right.
Down Under.
Well, I all my videos I've counted, I've named them UFO Down Under, and my book was UFO Down Under. So UFO Down Under is embedded in my psychic, you know.
Yes.
So the Strange Encounter was a recent addition, but the radio show is brand new to me. So
do you know it's just delightful, Cosmic Girl, to have Bazza actually on the mic instead of just chiming in with his 2 cents worth in the background.
From the peanut gallery, yes.
So in a nutshell,
I liked it back there.
It's a lot safer.
I had to drag him kicking and screaming a little bit.
I've got to turn around to actually throw stuff at him when he's sitting in the corner
actually
of the
in front
studio.
of you.
Actually, you're better looking at the back of your head.
You'd be surprised, but I get that a lot. So in a nutshell then, Cosmic Girl, what do the listeners have to expect from tonight's show?
Well, we're talking about in recent times about seeing the release of official evidence released by the US government that's credible and authentic confirmation that UFOs are real.
The US government is credible and authentic?
No.
With a straight face?
No, yeah, well, I did. But I mean the information that they are releasing is credible, you know, but what video that's been taken of UFOs by pilots of aircraft.
Right.
Yeah, military aircraft. So, you know, it's not new, but it's out there.
Yeah, they've had 70 years to work it out, and they're just starting to admit that they're seeing UFOs, or unexplained aerial aircraft, as they're calling them, UAPs. They've changed the terminology, and they're not I think it's some people are calling it a slow disclosure. I'm calling it a slow diversion.
So there's a bit of conjecture here just with regards to the terminology change. You're not convinced, Cosmic Girl? You don't like this?
No, I don't like UAPs either.
Right.
But UAPs was what the Air Force originally called UFOs, unusual aerial phenomena. But the UFO community has taken on UFOs. There are some UFO researchers who want to use the term UAP, but I think it diffuses the subject. It's, you know, it doesn't keep us. UAP could be anything from some strange meteorite or a comet or something that is, not previously listed or registered somewhere. But we're not talking that. We're talking about extraterrestrials. We're talking about other life in the universe, you know, that we can hopefully communicate with, or maybe not.
I think that's one of the main reasons they changed the terminology from UFO to UAPs, because they wanted to, when people hear the term UFO, they may immediately think of extraterrestrial. And that's the terminology that they want to steer away from.
Yeah.
Hence the diversion.
Yes, yeah. And it's the same in the stories that we've been seeing in the media lately, where some of our listeners might have been following the release of this footage from the US government and through the Freedom of Information Act, and where they've been, the people who have been talking about the footage have been steering away from the terms of extraterrestrial. They like to say, downplay that whole connection, say, these are UFOs, but we're not saying they're extraterrestrial. And I think there's a reason for that, in that they're trying, seemingly, the public face is they're trying to get this information out more into mainstream media, what pilots are actually capturing, from their aircraft, and to bring it up for discussion without, and to encourage pilots who are seeing UFOs to now be able to feel freer to come forward and talk about what they're seeing without any ramifications. Because in the past, there's been a concern that, anyone who comes forward like that, even a commercial airline pilot says, I saw this strange thing in the sky here, they're going to be taken away and debriefed and observed by a psychologist and make sure they're all right, because they're in a position where they're dealing with the responsibility of people's lives. So you've got to make sure those people are grounded and capable, still capable. Now that's been in the past. So what we're seeing in recent times, in the last couple of years, is a subtle shift away from that towards the support and call for support for pilots to be able to come forward and to be able to talk about what they're seeing without those ramifications.
Also, I think in the early days, when pilots saw these unusual craft that they couldn't explain, they called them flying saucers or discs, flying discs. Now, the terminology, if you see in the recent news releases, they're calling them Tic Tacs.
Really?
Tic Tacs.
Tic Tac UFO.
Tic Tac UFO. They changed it
What does that mean?
Well, it's a lolly that just suck all day, you know what I mean? It's an all-day sucker, Is that a little pun on words?
It's not really. It's a
I'm just saying. Well, you got to suck it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a tic tac shape. That's
Tic Tac. They didn't say it was disc shaped. They didn't say it was a flying saucer.
Took a while for the penny to drop.
Yeah, they've changed the terminology in that too. So what I feel they're doing, somebody's organised this as an agenda, an overall social engineering experiment.
Really?
Yes.
That's pretty big, Bazar.
It is, because it's happened started off a couple of years ago, and then they got this DeLong involved, which is when they changed it from UAP, it's virtually was a military term. I know the military used to originally call them UFOs anyway, because I saw tags they'd put on radar scopes of unidentified blips on the radar. They had a little tag they'd pin on there with UFO on it. I saw this back in late 60s.
Can I just stop you there, Bazar? Use the terminology social engineering. Can we qualify that a little bit more for the listeners? What do you mean by you're saying this is an experiment in social engineering?
Cosmic Girl and Sifu, tonight on Bay FM.
Well,
That's a big.
Well, people for a long time have been hoping for disclosure coming from the government.
Right.
For a long time.
Yeah.
And I think the main problem is nobody knows who's going to do it. There was nobody in the past that was an official person. People are saying, why can't the UFOs land on the White House lawn and the president come out and say, take me to your leader sort of thing, but I am your leader. That's not going to happen. They're looking for some authority, or they've got to try and... People are looking at extraterrestrials, right? That's the word that they're refusing to use. They don't want people to know that this planet is being visited by extraterrestrial beings. And that to avoid that, they have to engineer a social theme of thought to the new age.
That's credible.
To this generation of people, a new generation of people. And if they can read terminology UFO into UAP, the younger people are going to pick up on it, UAPs. And the early research that is done by many, many researchers over the years since the 40s, that is being overstepped by this current influx of information by the social that's on social media now, coming from mainstream media, and like the History Channel are putting out their like official sort of channels of information. It's like Reader's Digest. Anything the Reader's Digest puts out, people take it for gospel truth, no matter what they print. It's these reordered media outlets that they're engineering all this information very carefully to avoid the extraterrestrial terminology.
And if anyone wants to double check that, you can just put in UFO into Google or some sort of search engine. Well, probably Google is the worst. And what you'll find is there's the mainstream news about UFOs coming up now, rather than information that is released by, non-profit groups like UFO Research Queensland or, the local UFO organisations.
You're not implying that the search algorithms have been tweaked in any way?
They have
form,
definitely been tweaked.
Guaranteed.
And anyone can check that out for themselves. Just put it in.
Yeah.
Because years ago you'd put it in and all you'd get would be information from MUFON or organisations like ours, the British UFO organisations. That's where you get that information from. Now they're pages and pages down in the search engine.
Well, I did a search on with the UFO terminology, and it's all radio stations, TV stations, and you can just name them, like the alphabet organisations that are probably running the show. And the page limit is limited. The amount of pages that will load with that search term is also limited. So what it's doing, it's cutting out a high percentage of the average Joe or the person in society that's gathering this information. It's eliminating them altogether. And you can do it yourself. And it's not only Google, it's on YouTube as well. Run by the same people.
Or Facebook,
apparently.
It's all pretty much linked. And that brings me to a very interesting point. And I think we sort of danced around this earlier last week, Cosmic Girl. When you look at the stuff that we post on Strange Encounters or you guys post on UFO Research Queensland and the hits it gets, like the reach it gets, very interesting that some of the stuff that's really worth listening to, really worth digesting, reading, engaging with, always seems to be limited in its reach. However, a little experiment by myself the other day is I posted something that was absolutely asinine. And it was essentially a cartoon which had a small alien child approaching an adult alien around 9 p.m. in the evening saying, "You leave it till 9 p.m. in the evening to ask me for a human for your science project tomorrow," or words to that effect.
Yeah.
And the caption was, "This is the reason why most alien abductions happen at night." We have, and counting, over 27,000 people have viewed that.
Yes.
Whereas we've actually published some very significant information over the last few weeks. And what are we struggling to get? 300 or 400? 500?
Some of it.
Yeah. Well, I also did an experiment on that as well, seeing how that was going. And I posted a video off YouTube that was about Pine Gap. And last time I looked at it, it had less than 100 views. So is the algorithm, and it's got a list of subject matter which eliminates it from the distribution through Facebook.
Absolutely. And then even further to that is content that is seen to be discrediting or devaluing or making light of the legitimacy of ET contact globally. Is that stuff being farmed out there more prolifically by design?
I think with computer search engines these days, they can, this is why all the mainstream media are getting all the attention on Facebook, because it's embedding in people's mind. This is where the social engineering comes into it. We're talking about this morning, and I suggest that we're looking at now the development of the 21st century MJ12 people.
All right.
A group of people that, like Cosmic Girl come up, you might explain it what your idea was following up from this, but we're trying to work out the big picture and what the agenda is overall. And it's not easy, but when you throw everything into the mix, some things start to come together and form a very interesting picture.
At the moment, what we're seeing in the media is a lot of talk about, actually this started last year when the article came out in the Washington Post about the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. And Luis Elizondo, who had been in, what was his background? He was a career intelligence officer, that's right, and with the US Army. And he had quit his position and he joined the To the Stars Academy, which has actually been established by Tom DeLonge. I don't think he's running his group band now, Blink.
Yeah,
Blink. What is it called? Blink
182.
102, yeah.
182, yeah.
182?
182.
182, okay.
182.
Blink anyway.
Anyway, Blink.
Blink.
Blink and you miss it.
If you blink and miss it.
But so that came out last year. And Luis Elizondo, and also at the same time, the release of one of these pieces of footage that was taken by, I think it was an F-18 Hornet pilot, and a couple of them, and of a UFO that was seen going over water, and it was going very fast, and it was very small but fast, and they'd locked onto it. And when that came out, a lot of people sort of went, wow, this is going to blow the lid off, of the whole UFO subject. Well, actually, it hasn't. But what it has is it's made us stop and observe more carefully of what's actually going on in the media at the moment.
Friday nights on BFM with Cosmic Girl and Sifu.
There seems, and I think a lot of UFO researchers sense there's a bigger agenda behind the release of information like that, the timing of it, and in what context that it's released. Like, we get a sense that there's something moving underground, but we don't know who's driving it and what the actual agenda really is.
It's a saturation, isn't it?
Yeah. So if you go back before the release of that article in the Washington Post, you go back to 2014, Tom DeLonge formed this To the Stars Academy company, I guess, at the time. And his idea was to create science fiction movies, and because he had a long-term interest in UFOs himself, science fiction movies and books aimed at the millennials. But then he came into contact with these other people. And we're talking about people like Christopher Mallon, he's the National Security Affairs Advisor, Luis Elizondo, the intelligence officer, Steve Justice as the chief operating officer and director. And what was his background? Oh, he was in defense aerospace industry. Dr. Harold Putoff, he's let me think what his is. He was in the Department of Defense and Intelligence Communities. Jim Semivan was in the CIA. So all these people, these spies, these people who are in these intelligence communities, sort of drew him in. He sort of became introduced to them, and there's a little bit of a blurriness about how that happened. So they got involved, or he got involved, but they're all involved now with the To the Stars Academy. And they're the people, if you go to their website, you can see the 3 pieces of footage taken by these pilots that's been released, and they've got it on their website. So that's the background to the release of that article last year through the Washington Post, right? Since then, the other part about the To the Stars Academy is that they've got a project called Adam. And ADAM is the acquisition and data analysis of materials, and I should say exotic materials. So they're collecting and analysing materials that supposedly have come from crashed UFO craft, I'm guessing. Where else would it come from? So, who's got that stuff?
How long have they been sitting on it?
Enter Robert Bigelow. Robert Bigelow has been collecting stuff, pieces of crash craft and all sorts of things with his aerospace industry company. And he's been examining that for years, for decades, and he's had a very long-term interest, a lifelong interest in UFOs since he was a kid. And I think he saw, or his grandfather saw, who told him, I can't quite remember now, saw a UFO, and that just sparked his interest right from the get-go. Now, Robert Bigelow was very heavily involved in the Skinwalker Ranch. Now, I don't know if listeners have heard of the Skinwalker Ranch. That was a property over in the United States.
Utah, was it? Or?
Could be in Utah, yep. But there was a lot of strange things going on around a family there. And it involved everything from there was a huge giant wolf that they shot at and the damn thing wouldn't die. You know, it was the hauntings and poltergeist activity. Can't remember if there were UFO sightings involved.
Yeah, there was.
But there was, yeah. So there's
At this ranch, what sort of size are we talking about?
What, this wolf, for example?
No, we're talking about the area.
Oh, the area. Oh, sorry.
I'm sure the wolf was quite big.
Well, when you read the description, you go, "Oh my God, that's huge."
The big wolf.
I can't remember.
Not sure how many acres, but it was a normal ranch over there, which is probably 100, 200 acres or something like that, maybe.
So Bigelow bought it up, and he went in there with his scientific advisors, and they camped there for a while to see what the hell was going on. And a book was written about it. And there was also the gentleman...
George Knapp.
Who's well known to Coast listeners. It's an internet conspiracy UFO radio show. And he was involved in that. One of the co-authors of that book is Dr. Combe Callagher. And he is on the board of directors of the To the Stars Academy. So you've got all these people, these ex-spies and, people who've been in...
military in there.
Military, yes.
I'll just say that if Bigelow's... his situation is being a private enterprise, the freedom of information has no authority to be able to get information from him that way. Like if NASA or one of the other government companies analysing so-called alien materials, freedom of information have to abide by the current rules to release some information, even if it's pages with blacked out print, but when it's a private enterprise,
it's locked down.
It's locked down.
So then, you've got all those people connected to through Luis Elizondo and through the To the Stars Academy to the Pentagon's own UFO research initiative that was called the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, which ran in secret from 2007 to 2012, and it was launched by the US Senator Harry Reid, who's a vocal advocate of UFOs himself. So you've got this whole mix of really interesting people working at a high level around the release of the UFOs information. The question is, what's the agenda? Who's really driving that? Because even though Tom DeLong, I think he said he's pulled in about $2 million so far since he started that organisation. It's not, to me, it's not a huge amount for what he's doing, okay? So the question in all our minds is, what's really going on here? What is it?
What is it, Bazza?
Well, this is what we're trying to work out, of course, but it's definitely organised from unseen high people in high places. Otherwise, these military people, ex-CIA agents and all this sort of stuff would not be able to be openly involved, and retired military personnel. So they're working there with the approval of some higher order. Who that is, we're not quite sure. It could be the secret government that's running the show behind the scenes. What is the master plan? They have talked about a false flag alien invasion at one stage earlier on. Is this part of what's preparing people to, with these people running this new group of people becoming familiar with public faces, and if something happened, no matter whether it was if it was associated with extraterrestrials, these people would be selected to come forward and already have a face to the public. These are the people that will be involved because of what they're doing now. They're getting a background, setting the background foundations. I don't know. We just have to let time play it out. But it'll be, it's an interesting period of time for ufology worldwide anyway.
And there's another piece of the puzzle too. This week they launched the first episode of Unidentified, which is Inside America's UFO investigation, and that's being produced by Tom DeLonge.
Friday nights on BFM with Cosmic Girl and Sifu.
Oh, wow.
And Luis Elizondo is the guy who talks you through the whole program. And this is going to be a series of credible information that they're releasing through this series. So there are plans afoot to get information out there. Now, the question is, though, how effective is it going to be? Because in 2001, when Dr. Stephen Greer came forward with the Disclosure Project, and he had gathered over 400 people, 400 witnesses from civil aviation and retired military people, and got video testimony from them about what they knew about the UFOs while they were holding those positions. Now, he called a press meeting at the Washington Press Club, and there were 20 of those witnesses there. The idea was that they did talk about what they knew. There were about over 100 media people who were covering that meeting, and we thought it was going to blow the lid off the UFO subject. Well, it did in our minds, but it didn't in the public mind. So the UFO community regardless of what anyone thinks about Dr. Stephen Greer, that man, we owe him a great debt of gratitude because he's collected on video testimony from these people, and it's up on YouTube now. And if people are trying to talk to their friends and relatives about the UFO subject, all they've got to do is go to YouTube and go to the Disclosure Project and military testimony. And you've got very credible people there talking about UFOs. Now, that's back in 2001, so that's 18 years ago. And what's happened in the public mind? Not a lot.
Not a lot, no.
Yeah, well, the interesting part about these new programs coming out by these new people involved in it is let's have a look at the information they're going to release to us. They've had quite a number of years of information being released all over the world with video footage and photographs and testimony reports. They've got a huge database to pick from. Now, are they going to regurgitate all that information and put it together and say, this is what we're releasing? And they're not going to surprise many people, but if they're trying to bring in the new age people and the new generation of people involved in it might attract them, they might be surprised because they haven't been able to even look for UFO information or relative material that's already been released for a number of time. But it's the people like the UFO researchers, long-term researchers and people interested in the subject are quite aware of all this history of knowledge. And if they're going to show us that knowledge regurgitated again, well, they're they're not going to affect many people. They have to come out with some extraordinary information and release some of the military gun camera on their aircraft gun camera footage. Must have a heap of that because they've had the whole Vietnam War, which was UFOs all over the place over there. They had reports of UFOs by the military personnel, lots of them, but there's very, very few. Well, there's only one photo that's been released with actual footage in it, a photograph in it, but there is a couple of pieces of footage that shows UFOs during military action. But the aircraft with their gun cameras must have picked up a heck of a lot of material like they did in World War II with Foo Fighters and all that. The military have a wealth of knowledge that's never been seen by anybody, any civilian. If they start releasing that stuff, we'll know they're serious. But if they're going to regurgitate the stuff that's already out there, still question it. What's the purpose of all this?
And the other part of that is that where the UFO community runs afoul, UFO researchers runs afoul, is that they think you can collect a whole lot of evidence and put it in front of people and it's going to change their mind. That doesn't happen. It's because the mind changes from the inside out, not the outside in.
Yeah.
So people there has to be some sort of preparation. If this is some sort of agenda to get people, ready for some sort of larger release of information, like you're saying, we're not really seeing a whole lot of that preparation. I mean, the footage that you can see on YouTube taken by these military pilots, that's good footage, and younger minds will be open to that probably, but not necessarily. There are those people who are hard and fast, the flat earthers in the UFO community, who will just not take stuff on board.
Right. So do you reckon maybe it's a preparation for official first contact?
I hesitated there, but I don't like hesitation on radio. But look, it's up to the extraterrestrials to make the contact. I mean, with the military developing laser weapons to shoot these things down, they're not... I mean, they're prepared for all this sort of stuff. They think that they're aggressive. Maybe they are. I don't know. But with the UFOs I've seen, and, I've seen it quite a lot. And even though I've had adrenaline rushes where these things come so close to me that that's a bit close for comfort, I didn't feel threatened as such, but I don't know. I have no answer because that's the nature of the subject. It's so elusive. We don't really know. But the military have, like, looking at Pine Gap, for example, look at the radar systems they got there. They got over the horizon radar, and they can identify movements of pieces of debris in space that are only centimeters in length. The technology is, if it's being used properly. I'd like to be introduced to some of this stuff myself and just see what it's producing. They are fully aware of what's coming into our atmosphere, but the general public know nothing about it, and that's probably a good thing as well. This is why they want to keep the extraterrestrial terminology out of the subject at all. And one of these reports that have been coming out on social media, I haven't read fully a lot of them because it's been such a saturation. I couldn't be bothered, I can see the agenda happening, And but I did read one comment where it was stated that the last sentence was of the story was most of these objects are identified as human activity anyway. Hey, come on. What about the little small percentage that could be extraterrestrial? Aren't you going to mention that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think UFO researchers have been quite cautious with what's going on at the moment because we've been down that track with the Disclosure Project and other things like that in previous decades, not to as large an extent, but certainly been disappointed with, what you think might happen. But then you've got to assess, do we really want disclosure on a civilization that's not really ready for it? I mean, what would really happen there?
I think Hollywood is with the nature of movies, aliens have been a great threat, and we have to shoot them down, and because they're going to blow up the White House and all this sort of stuff. That's what's put the wrong impression in people's minds. What if it really come out if the aliens put us here, and the whole Bible that people live their life by is really an account of aliens producing humans on this planet to live peacefully?
That's true. But the thing is, we don't know. We just don't know those answers. I think it would behoove us to, as a civilization, to be wary of any visitors, like we would with, we teach our kids stranger danger. You have to be wary. It would be silly to rush in with open arms and say, yes, we're here, come down and land. But at the same time, it's about trust. So, and we know that these extraterrestrials have technology that we seemingly don't have a handle on. And that's a concern. The different things that have happened with different countries have explored other countries that were less developed than themselves. Like when the Europeans came here to Australia, and look what's happened to our Aboriginal people, or look what happened to the Native Americans when the Europeans went to America, and all those sorts of things.
Friday nights on BFM with Cosmic Girl and Sifu.
Even in terms of, there's a lot of people out there all over the world that would suggest and imply quite strongly that ETs have been here for a long time, that certain people around the planet have enjoyed various types of relationships with them. There's been breeding programs. There's been educational programs, higher ascension type programs. There's even assertion that people have been kidnapped or somehow conscripted into an intergalactic war and are fighting on behalf of extraterrestrials in some capacity. I mean, what do you reckon about that?
Yeah, what do I reckon?
There's a lot of people talking, when you talk about ET agendas and we talk about ET contact, it's very diverse.
It is very diverse.
Very diverse. And what people are alleging goes from quite benign and benevolent to the alarming.
That's why I think you have to choose your allies carefully. And that's why I'm saying about there's a level of trust, and there has to be a common meeting ground. So with any sort of alien contact, we may not have control over them coming here. We may not have any control. I don't know until they, land en masse. Who knows?
This is one of the major problems. There's no control over them. Their technology is so amazing. They can come into this atmosphere. They can accelerate from standing still to a blur, I don't know how many 1,000 kilometres an hour within metres, and there's nothing that we have that can intercept something like that. Their technology is so incredibly amazing that we just have no control over their coming and going. This is a major problem. And this is one of the things that they're a bit hesitant about releasing. They want to see military little tic-tac-toe type things that are just harmless looking things just picked up on radio. Yeah, does it, and it's gone. What about the intelligence behind that?
This is the thing, though, Bazo, I guess, is why? Why even visit us here? Why has their presence so well documented and well observed over the years, and seemingly we're not any closer to uncovering why they're actually here or what they're getting out of the contact here?
Look, we think we're the only civilized society in the universe. Like, the fact be known, the universe is so huge and so old. There's probably millions of different civilizations and life forms not too far away from this planet, this solar system that we're in, or the galaxy that we're in. The universe is teeming with life of some sort. That's the way creation is. And we have to establish and understand that sometime in human evolution that we're not the only ones. And it's quite possible intelligent people or intelligent beings of some description have developed a technology and a means of using universal energies and space-time continuum type technology or quantum computers that we're just sort of thinking about and trying to develop. People may have had this stuff developed for many, many thousands or millions of years, and the technology, we just can't comprehend what it can be produced in future times of that scale. And we're being visited by people that are probably so interested in the science and the growth of a small planet like this with life forms like us humans on it, the development of the society coming back every 20 years, which seems to be a cycle when we have massive UFO observations on the planet. They're coming back and recording how human life is developing on this system. We've got to understand that we're not here alone. There are other living things out there.
I think that's pretty much a given. But what I guess I'm alluding to is what's the currency involved here? Like, what's the carrot for ET? So we're not talking about, they're not here. I wouldn't imagine they'd be here to observe our progress in mega tech. Would it be more like an energetic interest that they have, or even a soul currency, something that's a little bit more etheric than what we would traditionally associate with a motivation? Like, a lot of people would say it's the water. It's all about the water. I'm not convinced.
I think
I'm not convinced.
I think there's two main reasons, or two reasons, but one main reason I think is the DNA.
Yep.
Okay. Life would be a tradable economy out in the universe, because it's so vast and different. So, and there's various reasons, cases to support that. And one is of a gentleman who was involved with a group of extraterrestrials who had a hidden plantation in South America, and those ETs told him that they were here grafting fruits because their particular race had very strong taste senses, so sensory acuity. So that's an economy. People are trading that out there to their own people.
Yeah, why would it be any different than what it is here?
Yeah. So this is a great planet for resources for life. That's one. But I want to pick up on your other idea about a soul economy. That's a really interesting point, and there are cases that suggest that too. And one of them is an Australian case involving a woman called Kelly Cahill, which occurred, I can't quite remember now, but it was in the 90s, and that occurred outside Melbourne in the Dandenong Ranges, I think it was. Yeah. And she and her husband were coming home late one night. They saw a large UFO in a field, in a paddock on the right-hand side. They pulled up, and these beings who they were humanoid, but they did not look human at all. They were quite dark. They beamed down from underneath the spaceship, and they had these red glowing eyes. And she saw them, and she almost spontaneously said, "They're here for our souls." So, and that's not the first person who said that. And there's been other cases, like there's one in a book by Dr. Joe Lewis called The God Hypothesis, who talks about a woman who was taken on board a craft. Her consciousness was removed from her body and was inserted into a clone. And she never felt the same again because her consciousness was, the body was too small. She always felt it was too small for her to be in it. Now, those stories can be easily dismissed, and they have been, but they're around, and they've always been around. It's just that UFO researchers have downplayed those aspects because for a long time, they wanted scientists to get involved with the research. Well, obviously, that's not going to happen. So I think there's also a change in the UFO community, being with more of a willingness for some to start to present these unusual aspects to close encounter experiences too. And that's making us look more broadly at what the visitations are all about.
I think there's another aspect that you didn't mention there that's extremely important. With the UFOs observing human activity on this planet and the amount of war that we've created and destroying one another over the many years, and we're approaching a space age and being space travellers. There's no way in the world they want crazy humans out there travelling space and destroying all these things that we don't understand. So they'd be taking a great interest on our development, not only because of what they've seen during war. That's why there's UFOs seen during war activity. They're observing and they're recording all this sort of stuff, and they take a great personal interest in critically ill and dying humans, and I've proven that over time. And that's an aspect of ufology that a lot of people want to look in. They should look into. They present themselves in the scenes of aircraft crash where people are being killed. They're taking notice and recording people's human activity to the life and to the beginning until the end. And I think that they're seeing us sending all this stuff out in space. And on the moon, when they were supposed to have landed on the moon, there was UFOs seen hovering on the edge of craters and taking notice of our development into the space age. And I think that they want to...
How do they fit them onto the soundstage, Bazza?
They've got props, props and ropes and cranes, tall cranes in the dark, and those little lights you see are not stars; they're little lights on the LED lights on the cranes.
All right, there you go.
So for those who didn't get that, there's a suggestion that we never went to the moon behind those statements.
Friday nights on BFM with Cosmic Girl and Sifu.
Well, not the first time anyway.
Yes.
But I think that, if we're talking extraterrestrials, which we have to talk extraterrestrials if we're talking UFOs, because there's a direct relationship with UFOs and long term with extraterrestrials.
And while we're talking about the moon too, Baz, just a special hello to all the guys and girls that are living out there at the moment. I'm sure they'll be listening to our show. They'll pick it up. We go worldwide. Apparently, those folks that are living on the moon pick us up every now and then as well.
Oh, do they?
A bit of a shout out to all our lunar folk, lunar brothers and sisters out there.
Did you know all the animals on the moon have lunatics?
Lunatics. Oh, dearie me.
Is that moon dogs?
Moon doggies.
Moon doggies have lunatics.
Yeah.
Okay, so the future then for UFO researchers and I guess the amateur enthusiasts as well that have a real keen interest in the evolution of the topic. What sort of things should we be looking at? Should we be doing our own sort of experiments with social media to see what information's available? What sort of stuff should we be doing?
Well, personally, I just think you should just keep in mind the big picture. Don't fall for anything that's being presented to you as
the
gospel
carrot,
truth.
Yeah.
Like look at it with a little bit of a suspicion. It's not going to be harmful, and just sort of see if you can read something between the lines and just take note where the activity is coming from and which direction they seem to be going, and the type of people involved in this new order of MJ12 of the 21st century.
MJ12 of the 21st century. Cosmic Girl looked at me quite perplexed when I asked that question. What was that about?
Oh, I'm just reflecting on how many times I've got lost in this subject. I think for anyone who's a real enthusiast and wants to get involved in UFO research, just remember that there are many paths that you can go down and you can get lost for quite a while. And I've done it myself at various times. The way to find just way back is to go back to the data, go back to the reports, what people are seeing, try and make some sense out of that. And Barry's often told me, him being a sky watcher, that you can derive a lot of meaning and understanding out of just watching these things from the technology.
Yeah, absolutely.
And from there you can extrapolate what that particular civilization might be like with that technology. So yeah, you can get really lost really quite easily at times, and particularly these days. This is the other side of the cover up, is to data flood. So if you're flooding the internet with data, it's really hard for people to find to stay true
Needle
to
in a
the
haystack
course.
type thing, yeah.
Yeah. So that's another part of the cover up as well.
Yeah, and I think we're being engineered by Google search engine, YouTube. There was just a YouTube channel that was demonetized. One of the top, what was it, the Secure Team 10 or something, was it? It just got demonetized, maybe they were presenting UFO material not unlike what we're going to see a lot of from the so-called authorities.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah.
And but they've crippled him, people all around the world are sending information, and, believe it or not, there's some people don't believe a lot of the stuff that goes on there. It can be falsified. There are other channels on there that are doing CGI stuff that's fake and getting lots of hits, these are the ones that should be ripped out, but they're the ones they're leaving because they want to muddy the waters, officially.
I think any UFO researcher and any UFO organisation can be manipulated. And that's the other thing we have to keep in mind. Say a group like UFO Research Queensland, it's a UFO hub. So information can be trickled in and it can be siphoned off. So there's that aspect to it as well.
Mm. So any parting words for our listeners, Cosmic Girl, Bazza, just in relation to this topic?
Well, I hope they see where we're coming from, and we're not into the conspiracy theories as such, but we just got an open mind and want to look at the big picture and present what we find to you, so we can try and bring maintain a bit of reality into the subject. So we appreciate your feedback and just keep a sharp ear and just observe what's happening at the moment, because it's an interesting time.
I'd say work on developing your BS detector.
Right.
Discernment is a big thing in this field.
Right.
And when a researcher releases information or publishes a book or whatever, get to know a bit about them, what they've been doing, what their interests are, what drives them, and so where the information is coming from. Is it relevant? Is it grounded? And is it useful?
Mm. So listeners, you heard it right here. Keep your eyes to the skies and discern for yourselves. And if they do see something strange or interesting in the night sky or even in the day sky, Cosmic Girl, what should they do?
Well, they can contact us through our Strange Encounters Facebook page. They can also send a message to UFO Research Queensland. They can actually report it if they go to the website, which is www.ufoiq.asn.au. You can actually put the details directly into the database yourself.
Wow.
And you can have a look at what other people have put in there too. That's freely available to the public. And they can call.
Well, they can call Bay FM, the Heart, Soul and Spirit of the Bay on 3821 0022. That's 3821 0022 during business hours. Speak to our lovely office staff and they'll put you in contact with Cosmic Girl, Sifu or the Bazmeister himself. Thank you very much for your time this evening, Bazzy.
It's my pleasure.
It's awesome, Bazza, to have you here, actually.
It's great.
In the flesh.
Yeah. I hope the listeners get to know me like I'd like to get to know them.
Oh, that sounds really creepy.
It does.
Friday nights on Bay FM with Cosmic Girl and Sifu.